Welcome to the Core Women Podcast, the place for women entrepreneurs, authors, and self-starters looking to build community and gain valuable insights through expert interviews with women at the top of their game. Join your host, podcaster, producer, expert coach, entrepreneur, and author, Dr. Summer Watson, as she aims to inspire and empower you through these candid conversations. Lean in and embrace the journey. It's time to start the show. Here's your host, Dr. Summer Watson.
Welcome back to the Core Women Podcast, where powerful stories meet purposeful transformation. Today's guest, Dr. Patricia Timerman Barbosa da Silva, is a psychotherapist, author, and founder of Advocate to Create. In her groundbreaking book, Why Are We Fighting?, she introduces the IAP Model: Intention, Action, and Perception. Patricia's journey began with profound change, from moving countries at 14 years old without knowing the language to shifting from medicine to mental health. Along the way, she transformed personal pain into purpose, blending empathy, science, and lived experience to guide others through trauma, grief, and relationship challenges. Today, she helps individuals and couples navigate life's hardest moments with honesty, compassion, and clarity. And she's here to show us how understanding ourselves and others can change everything. Welcome, Dr. Timerman.
Thank you so much. You made me sound so good. Oh my God, you're great for my ego. How are you doing? Thank you so much for having me here.
Wonderful. And I am doing fine. I am doing great. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Core Women Podcast. Before we really dive into your professional journey, if you could describe your life to this point in one word, what would that be and why?
I'd have to say blessed. For as much as my life has had trial and turbulences, like many people, I have an amazing family, great support, found a beautiful husband with an even better family. I'd say that I won the lottery with my in-laws, and the entirety of the family has welcomed me in with open arms. And so especially in the world we live in today, I have to say my life has been blessed.
Well, I love that. And as we evolve through this conversation, we're going to get to learn more about you, both personally and professionally. And I can't wait to jump in. So, Dr. Timerman, your story is incredibly powerful. Can you share what it was like moving to the US at 14 and how that experience shaped your understanding of human connection and resilience?
Moving here was not the easiest thing, I gotta say. It got triggered by my maternal grandma passed, and my grandpa had a place here in Miami. And so we decided, by we, I mean my mom. I'm 14 years old. I had no voice, right? But my older siblings decided, you know what, maybe life would be better if we moved to the United States. Let's try. Now, I was daddy's little girl. I had just had a little brother from my dad and my stepmom. I always wanted a younger sibling because I've been the youngest of my entire family for the longest time. And we ended up moving here. I didn't speak English. I think one of the most difficult things was the phone would never ring because we didn't really know anyone. And when I first went to school here, again, I didn't speak English, and I felt like an alien, and I felt that people treated me like that because we couldn't communicate. So I lost my voice. Part of the reason that the name of my company is Advocate to Create is I had to learn to advocate for myself. And this used to be a source of shame, hence the reason that I'm making sure to say it out loud. I got here and I went to the 9th grade. Now imagine going into high school without knowing anything. Here, I moved here in January because the school year in Brazil is from January to December, but here the academic year is different. So I get here in the middle of the year, go into a high school, don't really speak the language, don't know anyone. I felt so alienated. Only the 9th grade would have lunch together. Then it would be 10th, 11th, 12th, and my brother went to the 10th grade. So my lunch was separate from his. So we couldn't even be together during lunch. I would have lunches in the bathroom because I'm I don't know anyone. Everybody would look at me in a weird way. It was a small school because, again, I came here in the middle of the school year.
Yeah.
So I lost my voice.
Mm-hmm.
Then I went to a public school, Michael Crops Senior High, shout out. And I started noticing like there are people from every ethnicity, every nationality possible. You'd have like the Brazilian table, the French table, the Russian table, Argentinian table, the Haitian table, Jamaican table. Like, and so I started just talking to a lot of people and refinding my voice. And I learned how important and powerful it is to be able to speak up. I guess that's why I went into communication. That's why my book is in communication, right?
Yeah. What a challenge coming to this country, not speaking the language, starting school freshman year. That's tough. But that also shows resilience. That also shows recognition of being aware of your surroundings, understanding what that looks like, and then also being able to learn how to advocate and regain that voice of your own.
Yeah, and I'll say there was the negative portions of it, but the positive is my sister and I became super connected, right? It
Nice.
really built upon the relationship that we have to this day. I have my older sister, middle brother, me, and then my little brother. My middle brother is just like as gregarious as one can be. He made friends super easy. He would just speak Portuguese to people who didn't speak Portuguese. And he did not care. He just like he's that kind of person. But my sister and I got super connected. The other thing is in finding my voice, and as you said, learning English, I wanted to make sure that I spoke eloquently, that I spoke well, because I noticed that people would just hear my accent and dumb me down when
Mm.
talking to me, and I really disliked it.
I can understand that. Absolutely. Where they talk louder or thinking you don't understand them or hear them. It's really interesting. I lived in Japan for 3 years. And so I did not speak Japanese. Funny thing, when I was in high school, my grandfather made the whole family go to junior college to learn Japanese. He said, "We're all going to learn Japanese." He believed that a lot of businesses in California were being purchased by the Japanese. So he was like, "You need to know Japanese." And so we went to junior college as a family. And, I picked up a couple of words, but it's a difficult language. So when I got to Japan, I was really out of my element. And I did not live on a military base. We're a military family. I did decided not to live on a military base, but to live out in town. So that transition looked different for me because I wasn't surrounded by Americans all the time. I was also surrounded by Japanese folks. And we learned how to communicate, whether that was through
Mime.
mime. Yeah, I was gonna say miming. I am so serious. Sometimes we would have to do that. And then we began to take walks with each other. And then we began to invite each other to our houses.
Yeah.
And so we began to learn more about each other and open our arms to each other and embrace each other. So that was really great. I think when you come at it from that perspective, that transition becomes a little easier. But as a young person, that can be difficult, especially kids. They're learning, they're judging, they're not necessarily always open. So I'm sure you experienced a lot of that.
By the way, my best friend lives in Tokyo.
Wow.
She married Argentinian who married a Japanese. And
Wow.
so the concept of that, right, and like not really knowing people around you outside of your partner who only speaks that language until you learn it, it can be very alienating, which impacts your self-confidence and your self-esteem because socialization is such an integral part of us as human
Right.
beings. Let's go very Adlerian in this thing right now, right?
Oh my God. I was just about to say part of Adler's concept was belonging.
Yeah,
And so we really, as human beings, thrive on belonging.
yeah.
And so you're absolutely right. When we feel like we're separated from something or our communities, we don't have that sense of belonging. So I love that you brought that up. So let's go into the next question. You originally planned to pursue medicine, but found your purpose in psychotherapy. What was the turning point that made you realize the study of the mind and behavior was where your heart belonged?
So the funny thing is, I wanted to go into medicine mostly because I had been groomed in a way to go into medicine. We're Jewish, right? You can be an attorney, a doctor, or a business person. My sister is an attorney. I am a psychotherapist doctor, and my brother
Yes.
works in banking, right?
Oh,
Very stereotypical. So my entire like journey through high school and going like when I went to NYU, it was pre-med, but you needed to choose a major. And I'm like, wait, what? Because the majority of what I'm doing is this. I got my AAs in biology, but I'm like, oh, let's venture out. did intro to psych and intro to political science. I said no to psych, and my bachelor's is in political science. Right. And
Yeah.
so then when I graduated and I moved back to Miami, I had applied to 2 medical schools. But my test taking, and I talk a lot about test anxiety today, but at the time, like my anxiety would take over and all my brilliance would like go away. And I wasn't as aware. So my MCATs were like, okay. So I said, you know what? I had spoken to my eye doctor and he was amazing. He's like, why don't you do your master's? Gain some confidence, like gain something so you feel like you're still within the academic world. And then from your master's, you go back into medical school. And I'm like, you know, I love that. I was working at Miami-Dade College. I started looking at education, love education. Always knew that at some point I want to go into teaching. And I found marriage and family therapy at a Barry University. The only way that I can express it is it spoke to me.
Oh, okay.
I called Dr. Tureen, who was there at the time. We had a conversation. We did an interview. I did my master's in dual mental health and marriage and family, always knowing that this is just going to be a master's on the side. I'm going to go back to medical school. Meanwhile, I'm working at an immigration law firm. Like I was all over the place.
Wow.
Graduated, started studying again for the AMCATs. And I started to recognize I'm in love with the mind.
Mm.
The relationship between the brain and the mind, the psychology and the physiology, being power posing, contraction, all of that beautiful stuff. But I'm in love with the mind. And so the more I study for my MCAT, the more I realize this is not where I'm supposed to go. So I instead started studying for the GRE to get into the PhD. And I remember my grandpa saying, the PhD suffices, Mama Lee. I was like, oh, thank you, Grandpa.
You know, that is fantastic. I love that story, your journey, how you got into psychotherapy, your love of the mind. Another commonality between us. In undergrad at Berkeley, I declared psychology as my major. And then I was so bored with it. I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. It's all theory. And it bored me. It was memorization. It was theory. It was like, gah, gah, gah. You know, so, right? Okay, so you can't see her, folks, but her hands are on her head and she's like, exactly, right? You know what I'm talking about. So at the time, I was like, I don't want to do all this boring memorization. So I actually ended up getting my degree in English literature and thinking, well, I'm going to go into law school. And so I actually took the LSATs and got in and went
Oh, you go, woman.
and then decided this is not for me and turned around and started going into human services because I loved people, working with people. So, like you, we make these transitions, but we find ourselves somewhere that we really love and that we're passionate about. So, all of those, I wouldn't even call them missteps. I would say all that gained wisdom is something you bring forward.
Yeah, it's like life will take you where you need to go if you let it.
Right.
Right? Like for me, the concept of when you said memorization to me is like, is the world of gray. I've always loved black and whites. I'm a numbers person to the point that my dissertation, unlike everyone else in my cohort, was quantitative, not qualitative.
Right.
I love numbers. I love black and white. I love like this leads to this. And no, like it's the world of gray. I facilitated a group for about a decade for survivors of suicide loss.
Mhm.
And I remember once this person saying to me, like, how is it that whenever we talk about what we're going through, you say it's normal? When is it not normal? And I said, it's normal based upon your context, right? So in suicide grief, one of the prominent aspects is the movie that we have in our head, right? Going
Mhm.
through all of the things that happened the day before or that were leading to that day. And because we're rational beings, then we want to understand everything. If I do not understand what led to my loved one taking his or her life, I will either assign blame to others or most likely take blame into myself. And so that guilt really, it's a prominent aspect of suicide grief amongst a couple other things. So I said, outside of your context, if you're talking to me about things that you're going through, it would not be quote unquote normal,
Yeah.
right? I would be worried. But within your context, it is.
Right.
That's when we talk about intention, action, perception, is the perception of where you're living in that moment. We create our triggers and defense mechanisms, and how we see the world is based on our interactions with the world and the world's interaction back to us, which leads to the meaning we associate to certain things.
So this is a great segue into my next question. You knew where I was going, right? So in your book, Why Are We Fighting? You introduced the IAP model, intention, action, perception. What inspired its creation and how can it change the way we communicate in relationships?
Okay, so what inspired its creation was my relationship to my husband. I've cited this example so many times, but this because it is so true. There was this one day that he and I were fighting, and I left the room. And of course, for some, I don't understand the rationality behind it, but for some reason, myself, and I believe many other people agree with me, I left the room thinking, if you care, you are going to follow me. Ergo, if you do not follow me, it means you do not care. And he did not follow me.
Ooh.
Exactly. I don't know what it was, but something happened that he went to check on me. And so in our conversation, I asked, why did you not follow me? And he said, well, you created space. Like if you were me creating space, I'd want you to respect it. So I was respecting you, and that's why I didn't follow you. And then I noticed a couple other like little episodes or incidents that would happen that my perception was completely different from his intention or vice versa. So I'm like, okay, the concept of the action that's taken is getting lost in translation because we do not know the meaning associated to it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I really get aggravated when people say actions speak louder than words. Yes, it does if I know what the action represents, right?
Yes.
Actions do not have a universal meaning. So that expression has the implication that I'm aware of what your action means. That comes into play if I tell you something and then my action is congruent with my words. But if I say A and I do B, now I can say your actions are speaking louder than your words because you're not doing what you're saying. Then yes. Sorry, I
Right.
get very
Oh,
passionate
no,
about it, as
I
you can see.
love it. No, this is exactly what we're talking about. Why are we fighting? And then that IAP model. I love that formula, intention, action, perception, because there's a lot to it. And I've had these instances where, yeah, I've left the room too. Sometimes it was to take space and to kind of calm that heated discussion. Yet the perception is she left because she's mad, or but we didn't clarify in the moment why I might have walked away. And that walking away was to take that space, or that walking away was we're just at an impasse and we're not getting to where we need to be because we're just too heated right now.
Yeah.
So it may need that extra time, right?
And the thing is, just like when you text someone, they will interpret the text because the text doesn't come with our intonation. Though I've become the queen
Right.
of emojis as a result of learning that apparently I come out very dry in text.
Mm,
Like my supervisees sometimes will let me know, like, oh, I'm gonna be like 5 minutes, or say something. I will say like, thank you. So my intonation is, oh, thank you. Like, thank you for letting me know. They would read it like, thank you for letting me know. I was like, oh, dang. Like, that's not how I meant it. Right. So we will read a text from the point of view or maybe the mood that we are in at that moment in time, not knowing what the intonation of the other person was, but making an assumption. Sometimes in a text, like this person is fighting and this person isn't at all. Right. And there is
yeah.
like a disconnect. So I talk about like the rule of three interpretations with texting. I say the rule of three intonations, right? Read it in three different tones and choose the one that serves you best. But the reason that I brought that up is we often make assumptions of what a behavior represents from our own stance or state of mind in that moment in time. So if you and I are having a discussion and you leave, I may interpret you leaving as you being disrespectful because I was talking.
Yes.
Versus you may be like, hey, I'm about to explode and I'm really trying not to. And because I love you so much, I need to step out. You know, in math, like you and I talked about, like the black and white, in
Yeah.
math, if you're going to school, like high school, you need to show your work
Right.
to get to
Yeah.
the solution.
Right.
If you just give the solution, you don't get full points. You have to show the work. It's the same thing with the IAP, is the concept of showing your work.
Yeah.
What does your behavior represent? Until I know you so well that you can just give the solution without showing the work.
Yeah.
Right. So in your mind, you may think it's so clear I'm leaving because you can see in my face that I'm getting aggravated.
Right.
And so me leaving clearly means that I don't want to explode on you. And I may just read it totally different. So the aim of the IAP model is to curb assumptions.
Well, I think this is really important because there are a lot of assumptions that can be made. But there's also, and you know this as a doctor of psychology, there are multiple factors that contribute to our behavior. It's what we've learned, what's been modeled, our personalities, all these variables. So you're really creating this lovely equation to make it more simple because we are so complex. And when you say or try and normalize something for somebody else or say that's normal, that's because as long as it's within their perception, it is normalized, right?
Yeah.
We can go deep into this, and I love this stuff. But there is incredible context to this. And when you put this into practice, this IAP model, it can be so helpful. It can be so
Yes.
helpful in navigating so many different things within life that happen. And this leads to my next question for you. You often work with clients navigating grief, trauma, and conflict. How do your own personal experiences, like the loss of your dear friend, and you can talk more about that, influence your work and your compassion for others?
So when you say the loss of my dear friend, we're talking about Scott, the artist.
Yes.
So again, I worked at the 1-800 Suicide. I did my practicum and internship there. And he would sleep over at my house, take care of my mom's dog that would stay with us while I'd be at the 1-800 Suicide.
Yeah.
And so when he took his life, it was a complete shock
Mm.
to me, to the majority of us. But I already had transitioned from suicide prevention to suicide postvention, working with
Mhm.
suicide loss. And I knew a lot about it, right? In
Sure.
facilitating groups and experiencing it.
Right.
It was interesting because I worked so much with parents who lost their child,
Mm.
spouses who lost their partner, family members a lot. And I would work with people that lost their friends. And I never minimized anyone else's grief but my own.
Mm.
I remember thinking as I am facilitating the group, and I shared with them, but as
Mhm.
I'm facilitating the group, I remember thinking, how dare I compare myself? Like they lost someone so much more, like it's a family member. And I
Mhm.
remember them telling me what I would tell them.
Mhm.
I think one of them told me to shut up and be like, your grief is just as deep as ours. But it's interesting how we have an easier time being kinder to others
Mhm.
than to ourselves. And it was really a mirroring moment, like reflecting upon
Mhm.
myself and saying, like, why am I minimizing my grief? Who this person was in my life does not take away from who anyone else was in anyone else's life, but who this person was in my life. And it sucks that he left so
Yeah.
early.
Right.
I actually had somebody who was interviewing me for a report on something, and they asked, "What didn't you see?"
Mm.
And I said, "Don't ever ask this question to a survivor of suicide loss because we already put so much guilt on ourselves, and he's too close for comfort. I saw what he wanted me to see.
Yeah.
And if he had pride in only allowing people to see the mask that he wore because that's who he wanted to be, then I am happy that I was able to give him that.
Right.
That's who I remember. I don't see the inside. I didn't see beyond the mask because he didn't want us to."
Right. One of the other things, and this is going to be controversial because for several years I worked in locked facilities assessing people who were suicidal, homicidal, and gravely disabled. And I would have people who would come and go, come and go, come and go. And this was not about losing the empath or the emotionality that's attached to it, but more along the lines of when somebody is committed to an idea about taking their lives, the percentage is low, but sometimes there are those people who are going to make it happen.
Not every suicide is preventable.
Right. And the majority of them are, however, not everyone is.
I equate it to like when we talk about cancer, there are different
Yes.
types of cancer. There are cancers that it does not matter how early or late you caught it, it's fatal. There
Yes.
are cancers that, depending on how early or late you caught it, if you do the treatment, it's not fatal and you can live cancer free for the rest of your life. And there are those that you don't live cancer free. You're always watching over. You need to go make sure everything is okay every 6 months or every year.
Right.
When we talk about, like, again, the body and the mind, the body is the vessel that holds the mind, right? The mind is this universe that we still have so much to understand because we don't
Yes.
know, but it's contained within the vessel of our body. when we talk about suicide, there are those that are, as we talked about, preventable.
Right.
Absolutely. But there are those that are not preventable. And it's so impossible to distinguish between the two.
It really, really, really is. It really
Yeah.
is. I mean, you know it from leading groups and working in the human services field and mental health field as well as I do. And having been there for so many years, talking with people, going through their journeys, and looking at all these variables and factors, there are a lot of things that contribute to that. And we could go deeper in another conversation. This has been an incredible conversation. And I really want to point out that, folks, if you're looking for a great model in relation to intention, action, and perception, go check out the book, Why We Are Fighting. But my last question for you, Dr. Timmerman, is as we come to the close of the interview, for anyone listening who feels stuck in cycles of miscommunication or emotional disconnection, what's one simple shift they can make today to move from conflict towards connection?
The one simple shift is pause. And before reacting, seek clarification. What was the other person's intention behind what they said? We tend to, especially if we're in the middle of an argument, swim in a sea of wrong word choices. We go on tangents, so prior to reacting, seek clarification, be curious. You can express, hey, this is what I received. What were you actually trying to say to make sure that I respond correctly? But without the pausing first, it just goes really fast. So intentionally pause, be curious, and then respond as opposed to react.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Timmerman, for joining me on the Core Women podcast today.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
It was an absolute pleasure. You can follow Dr. Patricia Timerman Barbosa da Silva on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and Facebook at Advocate to Create and at www.advocate2create.com. You can also find her book, Why Are We Fighting, on Amazon.
Thank you for joining us on the Core Women podcast with Dr. Summer Watson. We're so glad you're here and would love to connect more with you. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Core Women, and on Twitter at Core Women 1. For more about Core Women and Dr. Watson, visit corewomen.com. Want more support and resources for amazing women like you? Great! Join Dr. Watson and Jen Fontanilla at the Life, Love, and Money Collective, a Core Women production that aids in understanding the key traits that might be getting in the way of living a life that you are absolutely passionate about. Connect with Summer and Jen and find out more at thelifeloveandmoney.com.